welcome to Lab Safety 101. I'm going to be talking to you about ways that you can keep yourself and others safe working in the chemistry labs here at Simmons University. I'm going to be using this chemistry lab here to demonstrate some safety protocols and procedures that you should follow while you're in the lab. And we'll go over what you should expect to do when you come to lab and get you comfortable before you actually come here in person to use the lab space. Okay, so this will be fun. Follow along. Here we are outside of the lab. Each of the lab doors has a lab schedule and some safety signage. There's no food or drink allowed in the lab. And there's also this fire diamond on each of the doors. I'll go over what all the information on this sign represents. The fire diamond shown here identifies the degree of severity of the health, flammability, and instability hazards in a lab space. It was designed for emergency responders so that they could quickly identify risks. The blue color indicates health, the red color indicates fire hazard, also known as flammability, the yellow color indicates instability or reactivity, and the white color indicates special hazards. Hazard severity is indicated by a numerical rating ranging from 0, which is a minimal hazard, to 4, which is a severe hazard. Each of the lab spaces will have a laboratory safety reference card. It'll tell you what room you're in and what to do in certain emergency situations. It also has the phone numbers for public safety, including the emergency and non-emergency phone number. Each of the labs has a telephone where you can find the public safety emergency and non-emergency telephone numbers. All you have to do is dial the 4-digit extension, 1111 for an emergency or 1112 for a non-emergency. The lab spaces also have a QR code that you can scan with your cell phone to access a Google Drive folder. The Google Drive folder includes all of the safety data sheets for chemicals that we have at Simmons. I'll show you how to use this Google Drive folder to find information about the chemicals you may be working with. When you scan the QR code for the safety data sheets, it will bring you to the Google Drive. You can go to your lab section and click on the lab you'll be performing that day. And there will be a list of all of the chemicals that you'll be using in the lab, and you can read through the different SDS sheets. We'll select heptane. And here is the safety data sheet for heptane. In section 2, you can see the hazards of this chemical. It is a flammable chemical. And we also see these pictograms, and we'll go over what those mean as well. There's other information about first aid measures if you are exposed to heptane, firefighting measures. The firefighting measures include the same information that is on the fire diamonds on the lab door. Each chemical will have this information as well, and it tells you the health, flammability, and instability properties of this chemical. These are the different GHS pictograms. These are printed on the labels of chemicals that we receive at Simmons, and they're also on the safety data sheets. You can pause to read through what each of these symbols represents and the hazards associated with them. Here we are in the lab. All of your personal belongings should be stored in these cubbies. Please don't put any bags or items on the floor. They could be a tripping hazard. If you have a water bottle with you, please make sure it's stored in your personal belongings. No outside food or drink is allowed unless it can be safely stored away. No food or drink on the lab benches. So we'll put our bags over here. Now we'll review you your PPE, which is personal protective equipment. These are essential and required items that you need to wear while working in the chemistry lab spaces. The first one is splash goggles, and you want to make sure you're purchasing indirect ventilation splash goggles. These are the type of goggles that are available in the bookstore, but you can buy them elsewhere. Indirect ventilation means that these vents along the edges allow airflow into them, but if you were to experience a chemical splashing on your face, the chemical would not enter into those vents. Safety glasses are not allowed. These do not provide enough protection. They don't fully sit on the face and protect your eyes, so these are not allowed. You want to make sure that you have splash goggles that sit across your eyes and cover them fully. You want to have a lab coat. We can find these at the bookstore as well, or you can buy them online. Make sure they fit and that they cover your wrists. And then the last thing that you want to have for your PPE is a pair of gloves, which we have over here on this flammable cabinet, but they might be located elsewhere in your lab. Here I am in my PPE. I have gloves for when I need them. I have my lab coat, which covers my wrists, my indirect ventilation splash goggles. You also want to make sure that you tie your hair back and you have no loose or dangling jewelry. Also make sure that you have closed-toed shoes and long pants, a long skirt or a long dress, anything that covers your legs. You just want to minimize how much exposed skin that you have. An important thing to remember is when you're wearing your gloves and your lab coat that you have no exposed skin around your wrists, so that when you're working with chemicals, all of your skin is covered. Please avoid wearing contact lenses in the lab. Contact lenses contain chemicals that may react with chemicals that we're using that day. Instead, wear eyeglasses, and then your splash goggles can go over your eyeglasses. If you need to leave the lab during your experiment, please make sure you don't wear any of your PPE outside of the lab. If you're transporting a chemical or a sample to another lab space, please adhere to the one glove policy. The one glove policy states that your gloved hand should be used to carry your sample or chemical, and your bare hand should be used to touch doorknobs or elevator buttons. This prevents contamination of common area spaces. Most labs at Simmons will have a flammable cabinet in the room. Flammable cabinets are fire-resistant cabinets. If there were to be a fire in this lab space, these materials inside of the cabinet may provide extra fuel for the fire. So we store them in the flammable cabinet to ensure a safe environment. The cabinet opens up like this, and you want to make sure that it's closed after you use it. Here's an example of a chemical that we would store in a flammable cabinet. This is heptane, and we can see here the pictogram of a flame indicating that this is a flammable material. You can find these spill and first aid kits underneath one of the sinks in the lab. Please always check with your instructor if you require anything from the first aid kit. This should be used for minor injuries in the lab, but as always, let your instructor know if you have any type of injury that needs attention. Your spill kit, there are 3 different colors of mats to use. Pink is generally the one that is used most often. It's for general chemical spills or things like acids or bases, and you can find them in this container. Please always let your instructor and TA know if you require the use of the spill kit, and they can assist you. In the event of a chemical spill, you want to take your absorbent pad and lay it directly over the spill. We have the waste hood, so we can flip this light right here to illuminate the waste hood. We have two different containers in this waste hood. They are not labeled right now for the purposes of the video, but when you're in lab, you'll see that these labels will have the names of the chemicals that you'll be using that day. These larger containers are for liquid or aqueous waste, and these smaller containers are for solid waste, and they'll typically be labeled. And you always want to check the label to make sure that what you're adding goes into the right container. And if you're not sure, please check with your instructor. Hazardous waste labels should have the full chemical name written out. No abbreviations should be used. For example, you would write sodium chloride instead of NaCl. This is an example of a hazardous waste label for organic aqueous waste. All of the chemical names are written out and there are no abbreviations. The hazards of the chemicals in this waste container have been checked off. In this case, ignitable, aka flammable, toxic, and corrosive. The building, department, room number, manager name, and telephone number are also filled out. The date will be filled in when the container is full or ready to be picked up. This is an example of a solid waste container that has been dated and is ready to be picked up. This spill pad that I used earlier can go into the solid waste. Here we are in the waste fume hood, and you want to make sure that no chemicals are going down the drains of the sink, so all of them should be disposed of in these containers. You can pour your waste into the container or use a funnel, and then you want to make sure that you're rinsing 3 times to ensure that all of the chemicals that you're using are in the waste container, and then you can clean your glassware at the sink with soap and water. Make sure you always close the waste container after you use it. Waste containers should not be venting into the fume hood. Distilled water bottles can be found around the room, and to refill them, you can use this distilled water tap at the sink to replenish them. If you spill anything on yourself, you want to immediately remove the contaminated clothing and come over here to the safety shower. You would stand under the safety shower and pull this lever and stand there for 15 minutes. If you were to have something splash into your eyes, have someone lead you over to the eye wash station, which is located right next to the safety shower. You're going to pull this down and water comes out in both directions. You'll hold your eyes wide open underneath that stream of water for 15 minutes. You'll also have a fire extinguisher located nearby the emergency shower and eye wash station. If you break any glass in the lab, it's okay, it happens all the time. There are these broken glass disposal boxes. You want to make sure that no glass goes into the regular trash can. You only want to put broken glass into these cardboard boxes so that they can be safely disposed of. You'll find a dustpan in the room, typically located near these boxes, and after you clean up any spills, you can clean up the glassware and dispose of them in these containers. Now I'll show you how to use a regular fume hood. This fume hood is not for hazardous waste. It is used in certain laboratory experiments when you're using organic materials, materials that are hazardous or produce fumes that you want the fume hood to mitigate. So first thing you would do is turn on the light switch, and you can raise the sash, but remember to not raise the sash above this line of 18 inches. And you want to make sure that you're working 6 inches into the hood. So here is the 6-inch mark. So to use the fume hood, you would lower the sash slightly, and then you can perform your laboratory manipulations safely inside of the fume hood. When you're working in the fume hood, you should be able to hear the airflow. Nice. need to weigh out a chemical on the balance, please grab either a spatula or a scoopula from your lab drawers. By the balances, you can find weigh paper or a weigh boat in order to measure out what you need on the balance. Before you weigh out your chemical on the balance, we want to ensure an accurate reading, so we'll need to zero the balance. Place your weigh paper or weigh boat on the surface and then press the zero or tare button. After you zero your balance, you use a spatula or scoopula to add the chemical onto the weigh paper or weigh boat. Never pour the chemical directly, always use your spatula or scoopula. When you're diluting a strong acid like hydrochloric acid or nitric acid, always perform the dilution inside of a fume hood. When diluting an acid, never add water to acid. Adding water to acid produces a strong exothermic or heat generating reaction. This can cause splattering or splashing and may injure you. Always add the acid to the water when you're diluting. Once you finish with your experiment, please make sure that your lab bench is completely clean. All of your glassware has been washed and left by the sinks, and you've returned all of the materials that you've used to their original location. Thank you for joining me today for Lab Safety 101. I hope you've learned some information about how to keep yourself and others safe in the lab. Before coming to lab, always read through your lab materials and let your instructor know if you have any questions. I'll see you around campus. Take care.